owner of the AWF, host of Call All-Stars, Call Superstar, 13-time Tag Team Champion and Pride Champion. This Scorpion is ready to shoot the shit as Sean Walsh presents the SWS.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it or not, welcome to another edition of the SWS. I know it's been a long time, but we're here. And I'm being joined by a very special guest, a man who maybe should have been on the show quite a while ago. But he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mason Kronik, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm just taking a break from the natural disaster outside.
Yes.
I just want to warn everybody that I might die during the recording process of this. There's some angry man named Dorian outside my house. He has a bat. I might get beaten to death.
So we could have history, the first man to die on the show.
If they die, they die.
Yes.
There we go.
So, obviously, we have a lot to cover. You know, a lot of our, my listeners are familiar with your current work in the past few years, especially, recent the murderer and the motherfucker. But I mean, this goes way back. You have been in Call for a long time. We've known each other for a very long time. So, I mean, first, how did you come across Call, and why did you want to join it?
How did I come across Call? Now, do we want the answer that makes me being 10 years old look like a bad person? Like, I was 10 when I came across Call. And I was, a very immature child at the time. And I came across Call by watching this show. It's a very good show. It's actually still active to this day, called Extreme Call Wrestling. ECW, with Tank and Papu and, all of them.
Excellent.
Well, they went away for a while. And, no offense to whoever hears this, but when they went away, I was part of a group in the, I guess you would say, IWC. It was just, you were there too. We were like the NWO.
Oh, no.
But we were, not necessarily we were all a bunch of trolls. So I was here trolling them, essentially. And then I came across somebody else, who basically was like, stop doing that. You're being an asshole. Why don't you join Call as well? Now, I know who this person is, but for the sake of the show and for the sake of your neck, I shouldn't bring this person up.
Okay, well, I'm glad my neck will be safer in yet another day. Kinda. But yeah, so, alright, man. So, would that, being a part of that group, of course we're referring to the YWO, would that be when we first met each other then?
We first met each other in the YWO. Yes, we did. But we didn't start talking until probably 2 years after that. Like, we knew of each other.
Right.
I had joined NJCW, New Japan Car Wrestling. I had joined CCO. What was the name? You remember the show that was done on Wii?
Was it VCW?
VCW, it might have been. We started talking more or less when I joined DIW and VCW. So I would say we really started talking when I was about 12 years old.
That sounds about right. Because I was just as young. I might have even been younger. So yeah, it dates all the way back then, and it's pretty crazy because we knew each other back then. We got to know each other over the years, So when you got told by insert person here that you should actually be, a part of the community and be in the shows, was it Mason Kronik right off the bat?
It was Mason Kronik right off the bat. However, it wasn't Mason Kronik right off the bat. Me being 10 years old at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I was playing, it was either SVR-08 or 09, one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm going to steal a call formula, yes, off cause.ws, because I don't know how to make good characters, on 2009, and then just edit it up a lot. So the original Mason Kronik like face morph for like 2009, 2008 was not of my own design. So I'm sorry to whoever I plagiarized. You're Mason Kronik now. But it wasn't Mason Kronik right off the bat. I actually shuffled through like 2 names. And another thing that I do want to bring up since we're on this topic, it's been asked of me before, and not necessarily by the community, but by select members of the community, so I do want to get something out of the way. So people ask me nowadays, it's more of a newer thing. It's not necessarily like from when I was around 10 years ago. People ask me why Kronik isn't necessarily based off myself, like my real life self. As you know, Kronik's not based off my real life self. Now, some personality aspects, especially in the previous gimmick, those were very much based off myself. However, in the current iteration, not so much. But Kronik is not like me. Kronik is a 6'6", near 300 pound white man. Well, I am here as a Black Rican, for those of you at home. That is a black man and a Puerto Rican man. So it wasn't necessarily Mason Kronik right off the bat. Kronik's formula has went through multiple changes. 2010 wasn't made by me. That was me giving Eddie Mack the 2009 formula and letting it to convert into that. And from there, I got called Brock Lesnar for a good 4 or 5 years and was cyberbullied off the internet for 5 years. You know, in terms of kayfabe, we like to call that Japan. So if anyone was wondering where I was, I hated the community, the car wrestling community, for a good 5 years because of the Vivian-verse. They bullied me off the internet, and we all know who the Vivian-verse are. But yeah, there. I know I went on a big tangent.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
But
Of course, and some people are aware of, I guess, the jokes, and I mean, and the jokes now are innocent. We're like, oh, Brock Lesnar or whatever, because of the old look that we saw in like CCL and used elsewhere. But certainly, people back then their jokes were not meant to make you laugh. They were meant to be harmful. And
yes, very much so.
I mean, these Vivian-verse, and I've talked about the Vivian-verse a few times with a few other guests that were around during that time, and I don't think, well, okay, I guess there's one person who came on and defended them, and that's Evan O'Shea, but no surprise there. But everyone else seems to be in agreement that the Vivian-verse was bad, and they were mean, and they were cruel, and they brought more bad than good. I mean, it's totally up to you, but if you want to elaborate on some of the things that they said and did, whether it's to you or to whoever.
Oh boy. And look, I know nowadays, and I need to say this because this could make some people mad at me. I know nowadays there are very few people from the Vivian-verse still around, necessarily. Like, they're around, but if we're being honest, if you were in the Vivian-verse, you're basically nothing to half of Caw. Nobody cares about you. You might be doing a show You might be doing something, but your past defines you, and you're an outcast, essentially. But no. So if you were in the Vivianverse and you are looked at in a somewhat positive light, if you were involved firsthand in bullying me as a child, I'm not going to give a shit about you. I don't care who you are. I do not like you. And see, there's a couple people that, for some reason, are, they're trying to repair their reputation. And I just want to make it clear on the Sean Walsh Show that your reputation, no matter how many times you say sorry to me, will just not be fixed in my eyes. Because I just don't give a fuck. But yeah, what they did. All right. So, it started out with just comments, right? And they would attack me in the comment section of, CCL or NJCW, even though NJCW stayed on 09 for so long. And 09 Kronik looked nothing like Brock Lesnar, with the exception of the hair. I personally, myself, don't even think 2010 Kronik looked that much like Lesnar, with exception of the hair. I mean, the face, if you ask me, it looked like a love child between Lesnar and Vladimir Kozlov or some shit. But, like I said, I didn't make that version. But anyways, so we're talking about what they did. Does using my character, without asking me, without my permission, putting me on their show just to make me look bad, just to make their friends laugh, booking me against Brock Lesnar 16 times just because they want to get the point across, ha ha, Mason Kronik is Brock Lesnar. And then, you remember when they tried to get rid of me? When they took my caw, killed it off, and anytime any other show would use it, they would say, didn't Mason Kronik die?
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah. And another thing, do you remember Call Wiki?
Oh, boy, I do.
If you were on their radar, your Call Wiki would get trashed. It would be trashed beyond belief. I believe my Call Wiki had me trained by Lance Storm, Brock Lesnar, and Dolph Ziggler. For some reason, it said I was a quote-unquote Brock Lesnar ripoff who died. If any other shows were using me, I was either an imposter or some other zombie version of Kronik. I remember these word from word. And it got really bad on Xbox Live one time. I was still a kid. And I had joined, I believe, a party through Smokey in like 2009. It was a voice chat. And Smokey didn't know. It was an open party. He didn't invite me. However, I joined and I started talking to them. And I don't even know if they knew I was Kronik or not. But because I was a kid, some of these Vivianverse guys just told me straight up to fuck off. And just started attacking me in the party. And I was there. I was originally joining as a 10, 11-year-old, wanting to, try and work out my relationship. And need me remind you that these guys, most of them were all adults, at least in their older teen years, bullying a 10-year-old. So yeah, they did quite a lot to me. And they were still using Kronik as a joke.
For years, actually.
After I came back recently, I had to shut them down. And, they tried to do that gang up bully mentality thing. But it wasn't until they saw that everyone was on my side now, that I had the numbers, that people didn't care about them anymore, that they just stopped. So yeah, fuck the Vivianverse.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah, for real. I mean, because I mentioned before about the Call Wiki, and they would put they put some of the ones the pages I'd make, and they'd they'd be like they took like Ben Hitman's and like, oh, he's a transvestite and he's dead. He got murdered, so he was also dead. And then they'd be
Dead Man Club.
and then they loved to put cause that weren't in their fold into the shitty cause group. So they did that, which is why almost no one uses Call Wiki anymore, because they ruined it. And it's funny, you bring up, a lot of these guys, at least the ones that are still around, because they have very big egos for themselves, probably most likely because their lives are pretty shitty. And they think, oh, well, I was such and such, 10 years ago. Why isn't everyone bowing at my feet? And then they have, 20 subscribers, and and they get 3 views a video, and no one knows who they are. And instead of taking the chance to show who they are, they just, get offended by it. And they're like, oh, I'm the great blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, no one cares about you anymore. They don't get it.
They thought they were going to remain on top all this time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think the reason they were able to remain on top for as long as they were is because, well, back around that time, I'd say, how long do you say the Vivian verse lasted? Oh, wait to... I'm not sure, because I disappeared.
Maybe 2012?
2012, yeah. Probably like 08 to 2012. Around that time period, a lot of the people in CAW now, or a lot of the ones that were bullied, were also younger.
Yes.
They were younger, or they were ganged up on viciously. I know, now, I really respect Eddie Mack, but he was also a victim of him.
Mm-hmm.
They ganged up on him relentlessly over something stupid, and so they were just not good people.
No, they weren't. And I'm sure if Eddie was here now, because I know he has no love for the Vivian verse at all. It's just terrible. I remember for years, I would see like they would trash CCL for whatever reason. I'm like, well, why do these guys hate CCL? And I look at CCL and it wasn't bad.
I've always considered CCL one of the better shows.
Yeah.
Like, if I was to name like a top 5 shows, CCL would be in there.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, and yeah, it's a great point you mentioned. I mean, Eddie at that point, he's younger than he is now, but he was still older at the time compared to like me or you or some of these other guys that were younger. They had that power because we didn't know any better. Now we can be like, okay, yeah, fuck off. So yeah, now they're not in control. They're in the past, but with all that was going on, of course, you were also in shows like DIW and WCCW and NJCW, which were ran by the same guy for those two. Others, I'm sure I'm probably not remembering. Were those enjoyable? And were you able to enjoy being a part of them with all the other stuff going
on? With NJCW and WCCW?
Yeah.
Them two specifically? Or are we also bringing in shows like DIW and VCW?
Yeah, all those that weren't involved with all that, crap.
Okay. So, VCW I enjoyed until me and the owner had a falling out.
Mm-hmm.
NJCW and WCCW, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed being part of it. However, after a while, and I always tell people what I think of their product. I just felt like some of the stuff back in the day got repetitive. There wasn't a whole lot of story. And as you can tell from the modern iteration of Kronik, I like to be a story-driven character. DIW, though. DIW, at the time, was one of my favorite shows to be a part of. So, yeah, overall, with shows that weren't involved with the Vivian verse or any sort of bully tactic or whatever, I had fun doing. But eventually, that fun stopped and I left. I was also part of the AWF
Yeah, I was
way
just
back
about to
when.
bring that up. You know,
Well, go ahead.
yeah, so of course everyone I'm sure is aware of your current AWF run, but if people remember, as you were coming back, it was a bit of a snippet from with the promo video, but very briefly you were part of AWF and it's a part of its NXT show that only made it one season. So how did that come to be, and how was that whole fiasco?
How did me going about joining? I mean, I think you know as much as I do because I can't remember. I don't know if you asked me or if I asked you.
Well, I mean, at least
Or,
you're right. You know as much as I do because I don't remember. But
but
as far as I'm
do.
aware,
I do remember uh, what was going on with NXT. You actually had a voting system.
yep.
In place um, way back in the day. And at the time of my elimination, I was winning.
You were, because this NXT is not like how like WWE like actually does NXT now. This was like
Oh
competition
yeah, we have to
NXT.
clarify. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is season 1 NXT on USA Network after Raw. Was that how they did it?
they were on Sci-Fi.
Sci-Fi on
Yeah,
Sci-Fi.
yeah, because they
Okay.
replaced ECW. So I did it, and I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I can bring in some new people, and I was like, I'll just take this NXT show. So I brought in like there were actual calls, like you were on it. Steven Syntax was on it. I think he was Steven Viper at the time.
Steven Viper at the time, yeah.
Uh, and there were a few other guys. Um, I don't know if I can't remember if there's any that people are really. One of Yankee Boy's calls were on there, and it was on like the competition. Now this was like SmackDown versus Raw 2010, I think. So
2011.
2011. Okay, so there's not a lot you can do. So I really tried to make it like the competition. So I remember the one thing I remember I had you guys do was like they had like a keg carrying thing in NXT. So I had you guys
Yeah,
do
you
that,
had
but with the steel steps. So you guys got timed running around the ring with the steel steps, um, which was awful. Uh, so that happened, and you guys would like get points, and you would like you would get immunity, and then like people would vote and who would how they would rank. And you're right, you were at the top, and initially you were supposed to win NXT.
Until politics. Until Sean Walsh, you've heard it here, is a politicking son of a bitch.
Literally, so one other thing we stole is that they were pros. They had other guys that were on the AWF roster that were their pros, and so Kronik's pro was Tattoo Taker, who at the time was the AWF World Champion, and their whole thing is that you and Tattoo Taker did not like each other at all. He just didn't care to be there. He didn't like your attitude, and you didn't particularly like him. So that was your guys' kind of story.
You know what they say. Nobody likes me.
Oh man, little did we know then. But
Look, if you would have kept me around, I would have had to go to Japan. Because in story, that's the whole thing that pissed Kronik off, and Kronik's like, you know what? Fuck the United States. I'm leaving.
right. Because we did the thing where when it was decided, okay, you weren't winning NXT and you were going to get eliminated. So I was like, all right, we're going to do Kronik versus Tattoo Taker on an episode of NXT. And I think it was an AWF championship match. And
Yeah, AWF title versus basically the NXT career.
yeah. And back then, the Sean Walsh character was a dastardly heel. And he did the whole. He was like, oh well, I can't risk Mason Kronik winning the AWF title. Can't have that. So we did a whole like Montreal screw job thing where Tattoo Taker puts you in the ankle lock, which he's never done before.
Oh, what is this submission that this man has never done before? Oh, there he goes.
And because the cutscene was in the game, so I just did it, and I rang the bell, and Chronic was screwed over, and it was, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to lead to you coming back, and...
Oh, yeah, it most definitely was.
And it was going to lead to, I assume, you and Tattoo Taker, or you and me, or something at some point. It just never came to be.
You see, it was supposed to be that way, but either I dropped off the face of the earth, or you just never followed through, or something happened. It's just, it turned out it was going to be a storyline, very much so like the Daniel Bryan one, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like where he was out, and he'd come back. But it just never panned out.
No, yeah. Whether way it went, you did end up, because then you did end up leaving, and how long were you gone for? Was it 5 years?
Yeah, it was 5 years. 2011, I think early 2011 was when I left.
Okay, that sounds about right. And then you left.
5 years, give or take.
Right. Yeah. And you left. So, were you in those 5 years? Were you doing anything call related, or were you completely removed from it?
I actually was doing car related things. There were shows. There still are shows online. However, they're not as done online like they'd like you to believe anymore. A lot of them are done in highlight reel, much like a lot of us do nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But they use people that they meet on like PlayStation and things like that. But anyways, I joined online shows like TXW. There was one called ROV, Ring of Violence. That's where some people know about my other character, Ray Sifo.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's shown up. Yeah, I was doing call-related things just differently. Doing things away from the Vivian-verse. The Vivian-verse also tried to rear their heads in that scene, but they got shut out quickly, which was quite favorable. Because then nobody mentioned anything about that afterwards. I think the only one Vivian-verse associated that survived an online call was Brent Harvenator. And yeah, it's the only guy who I know is still involved in that community today. He's not involved much here.
Yeah,
but he ran off over there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And before we come to your comeback and all, one thing I probably should ask you earlier. You mentioned you watched the Extreme Call Wrestling. What other shows, if any, besides the ones that you were part of, that caught your eye that you were into back then, before you left?
Back then, shows I wasn't a part of?
Yeah.
Well, I watched a lot of fantasy shows back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I also did watch a lot of original shows. I can't remember the name of this one, but I do know there. I believe I heard the man who did it passed away. He had characters like Eric Stanton, and I think one was Mark Brandley, something like that. It was an original show. He had like the Kung Fu Kid. I really enjoyed that show. That was on like 2009. I know one of his characters actually transitioned into ECW. There was DWF, of course.
I think Mark Brandel went to ECW.
Yeah. There was DWF, of course. I watched SCAW. I watched ICCW. What was Dan's show?
Oh,
You know
man.
Dan.
Yeah, he had three. Cause
What was his first one?
his first one was TCW, and then he
It
went
might
to
have been
OMFG.
TCW. Or actually, it was either TCW or OMFG. Then he did, what was it, DGW?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't care much for DGW, but the other two I believe I enjoyed. Those are just old shows. Whenever I started to come back, I was and I wasn't involved in any shows, like other than COH. You were the one who got me there. But when I came back and I wanted to get back into shows, CCL, I was in talks with Eddie about getting back into CCL for the longest before I actually came back. And I keep talking about Eddie. I'm very appreciative of what he's been doing in CCL with me as of late. More appreciative of him than I am how other people are booking me. You know who I'm talking about.
I do.
And it's not you.
It's not me.
There's a small list of people. So if you hear me, Mr. Electric, you hear me. But yeah, there were some shows that I've kept an eye on and have enjoyed.
Now let's talk about actually, before we talk about your comeback, because I'm sure quite a few people are very curious about that. Let's go to a couple fan questions.
I have fans?
Well, questions from people. Maybe they're not fans. Let's see how this goes. We have one from a fan, Jay, who's saying, "Why am I such a fucking and then a word that starts with G that's not so nice."
Why am I such a fucking gook? Just fucking say it, Sean. You said it before.
I do not.
I thought you were Mexican.
Wow, Facebook.
Wait, hold
Facebook
on.
just popped up. Report a problem. It sensed an issue.
I always thought you were Mexican, Jay. So I mean, I haven't thought you were. What is it you said? You're a goose?
Fucking say it. Just call me that already, goddammit.
Like I said, I always thought you were a Mexican, Jay.
Just
So
like
there we
Andrew.
go. Just like the boy.
Next one from Scott. Why does no one like you?
Look, that gimmick, it was supposed to be that nobody liked me. It just happened that I picked a song that everybody liked, and then everyone was like, I like swearing. Motherfucker, bitch, bitch. Why do you think people like John Blackos now? Motherfucker stole my gimmick.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay, we'll get to that.
We have one from an Andy. How did that dark void feel? Winky face.
I feel like I could have done it better. But anyways, that's I'll leave it at that.
What is this? We'll do one more for now, and then we'll come back to fan questions later. This is also from Jay. How does it feel when Carol tries to be like you every second, even going as far as to verbally and physically treat women like they're Stevie Richards?
A Ryan Carroll question on my edition of the Sean Walsh Show. Look, it's no secret that I absolutely hate Ryan.
Is it because I broke up with you, bitch?
I was getting to that.
Of course, we're filmed in front of a live studio audience, guys.
I mean, we're just sitting here in this alleyway in Florida. There's a couple of bums huddled by the campfire over there. I think a glass pipe fell out of Jay's pocket. But look, I'm going to choose to avoid all Ryan Carroll related questions because I can't stand that man.
Fair. So, and we'll don't worry for the other people who sent stuff. We'll come back later on. But let's talk about your comeback. You know, you've been out of at least this side of the community for a long time. What made you want to come back? How did that come to be? Where did you want to go back to? Explain that process.
What made me want to come back? I can't say honestly that it was any shows necessarily, because during my time away, you know, for the first year I kind of kept up with things, but then I dropped off. I quit playing wrestling games and video games in general. I guess you could say it was me getting my hands on an older game. It wasn't older to me at the time because I hadn't played it, but it was older at the time I returned. It was I think it was 2K14, and I was playing with my younger brother, and he had wanted me to. My siblings know about Mason Kronik. So he wanted me to make Mason Kronik because he has his own guy that he likes to bring around and, you know, just play for fun. So I made Mason Kronik, and then it just got me thinking. I'm like, maybe I should come back. Maybe I should see what shows are still around. And, you know, DIW wasn't around anymore, so I couldn't rejoin DIW. So I sent you the message. I'm like, hey, Sean, what shows are still around? Because I'm thinking of coming back. And you sent me in the direction of COH. And, I mean, I wish that worked out, but I haven't done anything in COH since. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. I wanted to see, I didn't know when I asked you if you would have space for me in AWF. Because when I came back, it was around the time when you were doing that Make Caw Fun Again thing. And you asserted yourself as president of Caw. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm dealing with the big dogs now. But yeah, so I didn't actually know if I would get into AWF or not.
Yeah, because when you reached out, it was, I mean, it wasn't like
it was out of nowhere.
It was out of nowhere, but we hadn't talked in a while.
Yeah. We hadn't talked in at least as long as I was gone, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't think it was like the whole time, because like maybe here and there, like you might have popped on Skype.
Oh yeah, like every 2 years.
Yeah, and I'd be like, oh hey, and and we'd maybe talk for a little bit, but that was really it. And then you'd be gone for a while, and then if anyone's like, oh, what happened to Kronik? I don't know. And then you reached out and you were like, yeah, I want to come back, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I remember suggesting COH, and then it came to be, because I think it was very shortly after. I was like, oh yeah, AWF too. I want you to come back for AWF. Was it? And then coming in, because I guess for me, when you left, where I was in Caw and where AWF was in Caw was way different. It was not good back then.
See, I feel like me and you have both evolved as people. Look, your show used to be trash.
It was.
It used to be trash. But nowadays the product is really good. It's really good. But I will also agree that back in the day, Mason Kronik, character-wise, now I'm not going to say I agree with all the bullying for my appearance and everything, but character-wise, I was jumbling back and forth between gimmicks and not knowing what I wanted to do with Kronik. Now, when I came back, I was more mature, I was older, and I decided, okay, I have this creativity in my head. I have all these ideas I want to do. Good night, Jay. I'm sorry, one of the homeless people went to sleep. But I had all these ideas in my head. And, I wanted to portray them. Whenever I came back, though, I don't know if you recall some of my first few COH promos, but voice promos weren't a thing when I left.
No, they weren't. That's a great point. Back then, it was all about text promos.
Mm-hmm. It was all about text promos. And you see, I didn't mind voice promos, though. It took me a minute to get used to, but I didn't mind. Oh, and I have to, since we're talking about voice promos, after I get done talking about this, I am calling a bitch up.
Okay.
I think you know who I'm calling out.
Say it to my fucking face.
Not you.
But look, and I know they'll listen to this, so they'll hear me. But no, I like voice promos now. But when I first got into it, it was really weird. My gimmick was also different. If you didn't notice, like the first maybe 6 months I was back, I wasn't using the motherfucker bitch dumb bitch.
Right.
Because I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted to do a gimmick that I'm kind of doing now. It's just evolved since then. The Murderer was originally going to be the quote-unquote human embodiment of rage. It's a mouthful. But I was, in my first few COH promos, that's what I was calling myself. And you know, it eventually worked out.
It did.
The motherfucker transition came out of nowhere. I didn't plan that.
I think it just, you know, whether it be, you know, promos you did, or even just in Skype calls too, and you just call people motherfucker, or call people bitches and dumb bitches and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I think you need to elaborate that the motherfucker persona is literally how I am most of the time.
Yes.
It's it wasn't really a gimmick as much as it was an extension of myself. So there's that. But fuck, what was your initial question? I get talking and I just forget things.
No, I was just talking about the comeback and how things were different. I mean, you mentioned like one thing being the switch from text promos to voice promos. Is there any other initial changes that you noticed, like, oh man, this place is not
video promo?
Oh yeah.
Okay, now remember when I brought up my race earlier? This is why. I didn't want to just bring up my race left field. However, I think it will be very weird if I did a video promo.
Yeah.
Kronik is a 6'6", bearded, 300-pound white man. White man. Mason Henderson is a... Well, I mean, I'm kind of close to Kronik's height, but I'm not, certainly not jacked. I'm not 300 pounds anymore. By the way, guys, I've lost a lot of weight. Thank me. But no. My skin's just too dark. My features aren't the same. People would look at me and be like, "Wow, Kronik really looks different." Most of the people who do video promos at least look somewhat like their characters.
Some of them do.
Some of them do.
Some of them, and this is...
At least they're the same race as their character.
True. At least they have that. Some of them are like, oh yeah, jacked to the gills, and they show up like, 400 pounds. And
looking like a frog. But no, back in the day, when I was involved in COD, we didn't necessarily always make characters based off ourselves.
No.
We made characters. Original characters. Characters just to make characters. And when I came back, everyone was basing the characters off of them. And I'm like, oh shit, well, I don't fit in. I thought I was going to be required to do video promos. And I'm like, well, better go to Toys R Us, get that Brock Lesnar foam mask.
We always...
Get some John Cena hands.
we always joked that that's what you could do. I know when we were like, for some of the trips we're going, I'm like, oh yeah, Kronik, if you go, I'm like, we'll just go to Toys R Us, get the Brock Lesnar mask, and you can do video promos. Oh man. Did you ever think that because of this that you would have to change Kronik's race? Or did that thought just
No.
never cross your mind?
No, because I wasn't going to. Because I like logical things.
Mm-hmm.
There was a version of Kronik that had a different race at one point in time, but that was for an online show, and it only made one appearance. If any of you can find the TXW episode where Big Black Mason Kronik appears, then look, I'll give you something.
No, you don't want to be like AJ, who when he came in the COH was an old man, and now he's like 30. So
I don't know what he did. He must be from Earth.
You're gonna get heat for that. You know that, right?
oh well, everyone's already taken a shot. But no, yeah. So it was definitely different. Kudos to you in that you've adjusted to. Obviously, you have now, but even back then, adjusted to it pretty quickly. And because some other people, it's a lot. Call was quite different years ago, and to come back and just be like, okay, this is how it's done now. I can work with this.
Oh yeah, I enjoy Caw now a lot more than I did actually. Caw, like I know everyone says back in the day it was the golden years, but now I'm much more involved. Back in the day as a watcher, it was probably the golden years. But to be involved in Caw without the Vivian verse down your throat, and just how updated the games are now, how much more you can do, it's probably the best time to be involved in Caw.
I agree. So now, you start showing up. If I remember correctly, did you start showing up on COH before the AWF return?
Yeah, COH was the first show I reappeared on.
Yeah, because Travis, especially back then, got shows out way before I did. So yeah, I remember you showed up, and I think you just had some squash matches at one point. And I know the big thing was you wrestling in the COH episode in Japan.
That's where I think the vignette appeared. I don't think I actually debuted on there. I should have. It would have made sense, but I don't think that's. I think that's where they just shown the vignette.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was the whole thing. You explained in kayfabe that you were gone because you went to Japan, and now you're back in the States, and you're making your big return, and then I know in AWF too, I think I aired that one vignette, and I also made the one where, or at least I added the intro where.
Oh yeah, you added some stuff to it.
Yeah, from one of your old NXT promos.
That always comes back to NXT.
It's so full circle.
Okay. I don't know if I should quote what I said.
You can use the letter. It's not that letter, folks.
I hope not. I hope not. Okay. See, back in the day, people were, I'd say, more apt to use this word as an insult. And now, in modern society, people have smartened up and, But, yeah, so, I said, my name is Mason Kronik. And if... Wait, hold on. Now is a good time to reveal this. I should be able to say the word, because I'm autistic.
Grand reveal.
Grand reveal. Mason Kronik's autistic. What you gonna do about it, bitches? Fuck you, Steve. I'm not gonna stop using the voice changer. I forgot to call you out earlier. Fuck you. Okay, anyway. So I said, my name's Mason Kronik. And in case you don't know that, you're fucking... And then I said R. R-E. R-E-T. R-E-T-A-R. And then, Dick.
Yeah. So that was a thing, and then and then you came back in, and you were, and for the most part in the beginning for both shows, it was just you did like, squash matches or like, lower card guys, and you'd beat them. And then when you did do promos, since you brought the voice changer, I mean, to point out, I mean, the obvious reason why you don't do it is why you use the voice changer.
My voice doesn't fit the Kronik character.
No.
I put on a little bit of a voice, and then I add a small voice changer to Kronik's voice, where I just make his pitch deeper, and there we go. Like, hold on, should I do it for the podcast?
Sure.
Okay, here's me now, motherfucker, dumb bitch, motherfucker. Motherfucker, dumb bitch, motherfucker.
Big difference. That one's definitely more realistic for the character. Yeah, I mean, it's completely fine. I use Audacity to change my pitch for some guys' promos. Other people do it. It's perfectly normal. I mean, especially older shows where one person did a lot of voices. It's not that irregular. Why do you think people have such an issue with the? It's very few people, I should add this.
It is one person, and his name is Steve Accuracy M. Look, and he's heard my real voice. He's joined Skype calls where he's heard my voice, and I remember the first time he's heard my voice, he's like, "Oh, Kronik sounds like that? I wouldn't have expected Kronik to sound like that." Well, you've answered your own question. Why would I use my own voice when my voice doesn't fit the character? Can you imagine me saying, "If they die, they die," and being intimidated? No, Kronik is supposed to be an intimidating, imposing figure, and I feel having a somewhat intimidating voice just adds to the character.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, if I was playing a character based on myself, sure, I'd use my actual voice. But Kronik, like I say, I refer to Kronik as Kronik, and people refer to me as Kronik. There's like two Kroniks when it comes to me. It's either they're talking to me or they're talking about the character. I'm always referring to myself as Kronik, or I'm referring to the character as Kronik. It's like I'm talking in third person. So
no one ever calls you Mason either. It's always just Kronik.
Nobody ever uses my name. I am Kronik, and Kronik is Kronik. But Kronik isn't me. Kronik is a character that I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Kronik's a creative outlet for me. That's why I'm always changing things.
Right. Now, one thing that you changed recently, earlier this year, that broke the hearts of some people, is the...
Myself including. I know what you're saying.
the Nobody Likes Me entrance music.
No. It made a return recently.
Well... So how did you? I mean, I know this, but for the fans, how did you find this song? Did you think that it was just gonna take off to become this basically meme that it is?
I didn't know people would actually like it as much as they did. The song really helped get me over too.
It did.
It really did. I didn't know people would like it as much. How I found it. It just goes to my edgy, youthful music taste from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of Hollywood Undead when I was young and you were listening to 3 Days of Grace. But no, and one of the guy Deuce, who does Nobody Likes Me, got kicked out of Hollywood Undead. So I've always known the song. And when I came back, I'm like, well, when I left, there weren't a lot of people that liked Mason Kronik. So, this is a fuck you to them. But, it just turned out. It played. It worked. Why I changed it, though, is just it was time to move on. I was changing my gimmick, and Nobody Likes Me would no longer work for the murderer character.
No, it wouldn't. And it really took off. I mean, like, almost everyone I know of liked the song. I mean, even some of the group trips that me and other people have gone on, we've sung the song in the car.
Oh yeah, there's a video.
We sent it to you.
Yeah, there's that video. But now, see, everybody likes me, and that's the meme.
I know, everyone like, Kronik's had this song, nobody likes me, but everyone likes him. So, yeah. So that all comes into fruition. You're at this time, I believe you're in COH or in AWF in the beginning. You weren't back in CCL yet. I'm not, unless I'm remembering wrong, I don't think you really showed up elsewhere until a little bit later on. I know in AWF, like you came in, you feud with Brock Manson for a bit, and then won the Extreme title.
I came in for Money in the Bank. I was on Mayhem, and then I feuded with Brock Manson.
Oh, that's okay. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot. You did. You came in to be a part of Mayhem, and you were Money in the Bank, which you didn't win, but you were still on Mayhem. And then I remember, I think I was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna do this," and then like an hour later, I was like, "Oh, turns out you're going to Uprising."
And I was fine with it because you basically told me that you didn't have much for me over there on Superstar Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
But then you had this Manson Kronik pitch, and I was like, you know what, I'm all for it. And as you know, nowadays I'm much more inclined to give my own opinion on things.
Yes.
And this, I want to say this to anyone who's listening that has Kronik in their show. If you have to book me for something and you need my opinion, just know I'm a very opinionated person, and I will be like, okay, but instead of this, how about we do this? And it all comes down to just like I said, Kronik's a character, and that's how I like to do things. Kronik's my character, my creative outlet. And I know, how do you feel about dealing with some of the creative input that I've given you?
I think it's good. I mean, I think you've given some good ideas, and clearly so, because we've gone forward with them. So I think it's great. I would rather someone be vocal about their opinion in a respectful way, which you always have been, than never message me at all and just don't care. So I'd much rather what you do.
Some of the things I can think of that I've actually done and suggested to you was the Glory Days match. Not the match itself, but like the one with Rockstone.
Oh, right. Are you talking about the one with the voices and?
Or not Rockstone. It was Brock Manson. Yeah, it wasn't Manson. It was Manson.
But
we did the same thing with Rockstone.
Yeah.
Rockstone made it better because he talked back.
Yeah, because that was a you idea, and we went with it where you sent different audio clips for throughout the match.
Yeah, insulting Manson and just saying his wife is gonna eat my children and calling him a bitch. And another one was actually more recent. It wasn't AWF related. It was called All Stars related. Was the Fisk Kronik match?
Yeah, that's right.
That wasn't originally the plan. The original plan, it was the Rumble, right?
Yeah.
I think I was. Yeah. But I said, no, Sean, who do you think I am? Some bitch that can't get booked elsewhere? Give me a singles match. Give me Timmy Turner. I don't care. And in hindsight, would have been a much better opponent if I'm kidding, boy. But yeah, so there's just a lot of things.
Yeah, and it led to all that. We mentioned the Brock Manson match, and of course, it led to you being the Extreme Champion, which for a while, because Mason Kronik, I mean, now Mason Kronik is being positioned higher up, but then you were like, you pretty much, I had you as like, because I had you with the Extreme title for quite a while, and you would just,
Oh yeah,
you would just beat people.
that's another idea. I had not beating people. Obviously, if that was the case, I'd just be like, okay, guys, I have an idea. I win. Which hasn't been the case recently in Kronik's, but he lost just tonight, as of recording this, CCL Undisputed to Ray,
Yep.
which, again, I gotta applaud Eddie. That was a great match. He lost, and a lot of this has to do with personal stuff, which, if you want to bring that up later, I can explain to everybody. A lot of the losing has to do with some personal stuff, like plans got scrapped. Recently, I lost the COH title.
Mm-hmm.
Lost
the CCL national title.
Yeah, the CCL well, kind of.
Okay, well, you got stripped.
Oh.
So I guess you didn't have to do the job.
Yeah, but I mean, I did the job on Undisputed, so there we go. Where else did I fucking? Oh yeah, Call All Stars.
Mm-hmm.
I lost there too. So as of late, Kronik's having a repeat of his time around what was it? Conspiracy.
Yeah, where you were losing everything.
I became the murderer just to start losing again. Fucking, I get mad about losing. God damn it, I need to change. Changes. God damn it, I need to change. Next, I gotta go the Fiend route now.
Now, and we'll address all that because there's a lot of interesting stuff we can talk about with just this year. And to wrap this up, because then we're going to go COH, but, you know, when you had your Extreme title thing, did you feel, and you know, I know you will, so just be honest, but, like, did you feel that you were like, okay, this is fine, or were you like, oh, I want to do more?
Oh, no, I mean, I was fine with it, personally, because I enjoy AWF, I enjoy the way you do the matches, and you listen to me on certain aspects. Like, I came to you and I told you, Sean, if I'm going to be this Extreme champion, let's have me defend it literally every show, and that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing I said to Eddie. I said, I want to defend the national title as much as possible. It's because whenever I have Kronik win a belt, I have, like, lore, I have story for a character that I like to keep consistent. When Kronik's a champion, I want to make him a fighting champion. I don't, and that's even why you've seen on COH, Kronik has defended the COH title multiple times. So, yeah, I was fine with it. And if I got moved up, you know, I'm fine with that too. I mean, who's going to be like, oh no, don't move me up?
Right.
I mean, did Jinder say, oh no, don't move me up, keep me a jobber?
Right.
No, Jinder's like, wait, you want me to be WWE champion? Well, you know what? Fuck it.
Right. And it also works out because, you know, in doing that, because you would held the title for a while, so you beat a lot of people. Record was good, and it led to that you know, that Rockstar match, or rather in AWF, Brian Stone, but it's the same fucking guy. Where you guys did have the Falls Count Anywhere match, where you guys both had the audio clips, and that match really helped get Rockstone over with that character in AWF. And I know some people were like, oh man, you know, I was hoping he was gonna get the win, and I was still, because then I was adding like JC Wolf to your guys' feud, and of course the whole JC Wolf thing happened.
That didn't pan out. People have differing opinions, and people just don't like each other.
Yeah,
and that's another thing I want to talk about later on. People in this community don't have to like each other, but people need to just understand that there's going to be drama in CAW as long as certain people are around.
Yes.
In general. So, and people are always like, why are the two sides warring? And you know what I mean by the two sides. I'm kind of neutral to both. And you know, right now I feel like people are peaceful with each other.
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that's a good thing. But way back whenever like things started, um, I feel like the only reason there was drama is because other people were around. And there's always going to be drama. Not everyone's going to like everyone. We don't have to like said people. You don't have to like said people. But don't wonder why there's not going to be peace if said people are heavily associated with one side.
Right.
Yeah.
And in one way, with JC, I mean, with that whole thing, you got to kill.
Oh yeah, and I do want to clarify that was not directed at JC Wolf.
That wasn't. No.
No.
I mean, anyone that's been paying attention can put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, it ended up being a thing where like JC ended up quitting. And I was like, okay, fine. And I remember I had a plan. I was like, all right, because the whole JC thing was a mess and it was annoying. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, oh, should I have him in the match and take the fall? Should he even be in the match? And then I remember I talked with him and it was not fine. And then he went on the VW Discord and was like, oh well, I guess I just got I just got fired from AWF or whatever. And it got reported back to me. And I told him, I was like, don't tell anyone. We keep it secret, and then we can, split after SiberSlam. And he didn't. He like within 5 minutes, he told everyone. So I was like, okay, you're not going to be written out peacefully. So I had it where you threw him off the top of a truck, and he landed on an equipment box. So basically, killing him.
Yeah. I mean, look, I feel if you're gonna leave a show and you're not wrapped up, like, and you're in the middle of a storyline or something, and it's not wrapped up, then you need to be written off somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, and it helped. It helped Kronik. It was like a prelude to the murderer.
It was. And what really helped too is because before the whole JC thing, Brian Stone was going to win the match. He was going to win the title. That didn't.
Yeah.
JC stuff didn't change that. But I think I was initially JC was going to eat the fall, and so to where you would lose the title, and then you would move on to wanting to go after the AWF championship, and with that whole thing, I was like, all right, well, I'm not having JC in the match. He's going to get killed off. So you look good because you kill JC, and then you go out there and you have this really physical, hardcore match with Brian Stone, and he beats you, and which puts him over huge because you were protected all that time.
Yeah, and it added to like the breaking point of Kronik that started the murderer.
Exactly.
Kronik officially broke whenever he was losing time after time after time again after he was on a high for a while. He had 5 belts at one time, and he was dominant. And Kronik at that time he was dominant and he was scary, but he had that bit of an ego to him.
Yes.
A little bit. And it's that ego that he felt got in his way. So whenever he lost to Brandon, he changed. He's like, I need to change. Something's wrong. And now whenever I talk as Kronik, I don't like to necessarily be as arrogant as I was. More or less, I like to be just intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Kronik is literally an amalgamation of all my favorite, like, scary wrestlers in one. Being Kawada, Vader, Jimmy Havoc, Samoa Joe, all little aspects from them. But yeah, it really did help in evolving Kronik to what he is today.
Absolutely. When we talk about, Rockstone, of course, that's not the only time you've worked with Rockstone. Rockstone, one of the people you've worked with quite a bit in your...
And I would work with him again.
Yeah, because he's great. He was your first, like, real feud in COH.
First real feud in COH.
And that...
First...
And then and you guys feuded afterwards after you won the title in COH.
Yep, we feuded again for the belt.
Yeah. How that initial feud you guys had, how do you feel that went?
Um,
Because I think you
how?
guys had Morris at one point involved in your feud.
Yeah, we had Morris involved, and I liked it at first. I really did. But adding Morris really got kind of convoluted. It didn't add anything to the feud. He was just probably added there because there was nothing going for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have just kept it if it was up to me between me and Rockstone. And yeah, that's the answer. I also feel, since I'm criticizing COH, there was this point in the feud where Rockstone no-sold a package pile driver through an announce table, got up, punched Kronik in the face for the win. He Cocoon Man. And for those of you who don't know what Cocoon Man is, you know that big right hand that Kronik used to use as a signature? That's Cocoon Man.
And if I remember correctly, I think he also kicked out of the Weapon X when you first started using it.
The Weapon X, the Weapon X originally was going to be a one and done, like for a while. Like it was going to be that no one can kick out of it. And Rockstone took, I think it was 2, the first time I ever had like a chance to debut it. So, yeah, that's also a thing.
And then from feuding with Rockstone, we got to after Anniversary in Ultimate Glory, and then this ended up being, obviously everyone now knows that you went on to be a part of the COH World Title match, and you faced Caleb Blair, and you beat him, and you won the title. But it was not as easy as I just said it. There was a whole lot of crap that happened to get there.
Oh yeah, well, originally in COH, and I wish it would have went this route because it would have been much better than what we got. I feel like my whole title reign would have shifted a little bit. Originally, I was supposed to win Money in the Bank. It wasn't supposed to be Stefan Guerrero. I was supposed to be in the match, and I was supposed to win. However, then some stuff with Ray Geddes happened. Ray ended up leaving, which then Caleb Blair needed an opponent. So I was scrapped from winning Money in the Bank, and, I was put in that position. But the Money in the Bank thing would have been interesting. Because it was originally going to be me cashing in on Ray. I think the night of Ultimate Glory.
Yeah.
And the next night, it was right after Roman beat Taker, right?
Yeah.
And he came out, and it was like a couple months after that, and he came out and he did that promo where he's like, "It's my yard now." Kronik was supposed to do that, like ruin the Ultimate Glory main event, pin Geddes 1, 2, 3, come out. We were gonna have the edits in where he was getting booed out of the arena because Ray was incredibly over at that time. I'd say he still is. I was supposed to say, "It's my nation now," and just walk off. That was going to be Kronik's initial goal for winning the title. Instead, it turned into, okay, we're going to have Ultimate Glory in Japan now, and Kronik's gonna have this match with Blair after winning this abrupt Royal Rumble, Honor Rumble.
Yeah, it was like a 10-man Honor Rumble.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. But it was really hard to do that because when me and Cash were trying to work with each other, and I said Cash.
Oh, you swore.
I apologize. But yeah, when we were trying to work with each other on COH, it wasn't working. We were clashing. butting heads, and eventually I had to bring Doc in. And basically, Doc was just the centerpiece, the mouthpiece, and things had to work from there.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
There was just a whole lot of drama at that time with Cash too, and look, I don't have any ongoing drama with Cash right now. So I do want to say this, and this is directed at you, Cash. If you hear this, do not jump to the conclusion that I am attacking you. Do not jump to the conclusion that I am trying to fight with you, and do not come and attack me like this is me shit-talking you. Because I'm not shit-talking you. I am talking about situations in the past. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I know how information likes to get passed around. So, there is to be no drama after this. I don't want any drama. I tend to stay out of drama. Okay, anyways.
It's just simply telling the story, that's all. And because it was a whole thing. There was drama all around. There was the drama with Ray and COH at the time, which thankfully is all resolved now. And
then there was drama with Cash and COH, and nobody. Well, I think that exceeded COH, but I feel like just. The reason I won the belt on Ultimate Glory that night, and it made some people mad. Some people, because Caleb Blair, if I guess Cash had it messed up, or I can't remember the exact reason. I just know a lot of stuff regarding Cash led to him. Did he get fired or did he leave?
So
I don't know what happened.
As far as I know,
I can't remember.
This is what I know, and this is again, I'm not trashing or anything. I'm just simply historical. He when the whole because it was back and forth with him and Ray who was gonna win, and I remember at one point he said he had personal issues and he wouldn't be able to stick around. So I was like, okay, Ray's gonna win. But then the whole Ray and COH thing happened, and it was like, okay, well Ray's leaving, and it was like, oh well, Cash has his personal stuff, so you got inserted because you were going to win the title anyways.
And because Cash had his personal problems.
Right, and so it was like, okay, we'll just insert Kronik in there, and it was like, all right, well then just Kronik will just beat Caleb Blair. And he was like, oh, suddenly my personal issues have gone away, and I can win now. And it was like, wait a minute, but you told people, a month or two ago that you couldn't, and it was like, and I remember Travis, he can speak for himself, but I remember he was like, yeah, he wanted to go with you, and we came to the match, it happened, and as far as I'm aware, he being Cash, he told Travis that he wanted to leave after Ultimate Glory. I think he was planned to leave for a bit anyways, but he as far as I was told, he messaged Travis to say that he was leaving, and that was that.
Oh, I see. See, it made some people mad, and when I say some people, I mean Cash's people Cash was close to, like people he was friends with.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
Look, I get it. He had a story going into the match. He did. He had like an underdog story going into the match. And under normal circumstances, it would have made sense for him to win. However, he was set to leave. He was set to leave, like you had mentioned, and he was set to, be away for a while before that. Now, I didn't know the match was going to be 6 minutes long.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know the match was going to be 6 minutes long. However, I will defend myself in saying, if you're going to leave, be it a sabbatical, be it you having personal stuff that you need to take care of, drop the win, and get it back later. Had it been civil like that, and had everything stayed civil and had World War III not broken out, there's probably an alternate timeline, Earth 1610 over there, That's where CCL Undisputed took place. You know, there's probably some alternate timeline where we agreed to this and Caleb Blair took the belt off Kronik. You know, but that's just not how things happened here. So if you're having a personal problem, like I recently was homeless for quite some time, and I dropped almost every belt I had, everywhere, because I had personal problems and I didn't know how long I was going to be gone for.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Yeah. So you so you won the belt, and you would go on to hold the title. Roughly around maybe a little bit before this, you reappeared in CCL, and you were part of the Doctor's Order because Doc was bringing the Doctor's Order back, and he wanted to bring his group of guys in to be in his group. How did this come to be? You mentioned you talked to Eddie like long beforehand, so you said like this predates Doctor Orders.
Yeah, I talked to Eddie predating the Doctor's Order, about rejoining. And, no offense to Eddie, but he kind of gave me the runaround for a little bit. I had to keep asking him, like, okay, well, am I getting signed? Am I not getting signed? Are you going to let me in? And he'd say yeah, but then nothing would happen for a while. Then I'd ask again, and he'd say yeah, nothing would happen for a while. And eventually I debuted, and I attacked the Butcher. Which is someone Doc has history with, but also Kronik has history with. That's the man who wrote Kronik out of CCL years ago. But the reason Kronik got put into the Doctor's Order was simply because of that Caleb Blair Kronik feud. Like we said, we brought... you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Simply because I'm just asking. Dorian's still outside beating in my window with his baseball bat. But because the Doc got brought into the Kronik Blair feud, and Doc's contribution was, quote unquote, what led Kronik to his success, he was essentially a Doc guy. So it made sense at the time. However, I was, and I've talked to Eddie about this, and it's been made super clear and apparent in my recent promos that I don't want Kronik in the Doctor's Order. And he's so far disassociated himself with the group as of current events. So
let's talk about that. Because the Doctor's Order comes together, and we have top names in the industry who weren't in CCL prior to the point, but were bigger names in other promotions. You have Mason Kronik, Ben Hopkins, Brandon Wolf, Nitro, AJ Young, and of course Doc leading the group. And you guys all come in, and it's a series of guys that could be on their own, because they have been on their own in other places as main event guys, but put together here.
Yeah, put together. We have current Call Stars champion Ben Hopkins. We had COH champion Mason Kronik. Multiple Federation champion AJ Young.
Mm-hmm.
Global champion Nitro.
Yep.
And Call Stars champion at the time Brandon Wolf.
Yep.
So it was really weird with certain people, how they were at the time being placed on the card in that regard. But it was also weird for me to be part of the Doctor's Order, because I didn't really want Kronik in a stable, because I was asked to join a stable in COH at one point, and I didn't want to be part of it because I felt at the time, if Kronik was going to be in a stable, I'd want him to lead the stable. Now I'm at the point where I don't want Kronik in a stable at the moment, because I feel like the murderer character works better on his own. And that's why I was trying to disassociate myself with the Doctor's Order through promos and everything else once the murderer gimmick came about.
Mm-hmm. So that all happens, and we'll get to that in a second. While all this is happening, you know, you're AWF Extreme Champion, you're COH World Champion, you win the CCL National Championship, and things are looking great for Mason Kronik. You're succeeding everywhere you go, and we reach Call All Stars 10. And in the year before, for Call All Stars 9, we'll come back to that. But for Call All Stars 10, I remember we were talking. It's like, okay, what can we do here? And we were talking about you and Bobby Mitchell, because you guys were going back and forth on Twitter. And
Yeah.
and I was like, it's like, it sounds like a cool match. Let's do it. I was like, but I wanted to do something different than just straight up announcing you guys. And I threw the idea your way. I was like, what do you think? Like, do you think we should just do a singles match with you guys for like the COH title or something, or should we do it where you fight like 3 guys and you get 2 joke guys, and then Bobby comes out and all that? And you were like, yeah, you were fine with whatever, but that one was clearly the idea that was separated itself from all the other matches on the card.
Oh yeah, it made it look more than just another match. It made it look more than that. But it also actually kind of helped Kronik get noticed, because a lot of the people in the VWU side, I will say this, and I could be wrong, but it's at least what I interpreted. So everyone that I talked to in the VWU Discord, the certain people over there, people who pay attention to me over there, really, that was their first viewing of me, like some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and a lot of them really found it funny that Kronik beat up Timmy Turner. Because if it wasn't for that, I might not have as big of a backing in the community. And when I say the community, I mean Call All Stars, VWU, I don't care. I probably wouldn't have as big of a backing on both ends that I do. I probably wouldn't be as supported or as, as the cool kids say, over as I am. So I really do appreciate that match. And I would also like to do something else with Bobby Mitchell in the future. Because Bobby Mitchell is, in my opinion, one of the more up-and-coming talents. I feel like he should join more places and be more exposed. But, some people like to keep it small.
Right. And I remember, and at the time, the great thing about Bobby is like he's a go-getter. He's not gonna wait. He's gonna, if he wants something, if he wants to get noticed, he's gonna go out of his way, and he knows how to use Twitter to do it. And it was great because you guys had that back and forth, and we created it to where it was like Bobby is like this madman, and he's just like banned from the building, and it was like the great thing about the match, I think. Because I feel some places, and it's not just one place, I think in multiple places, they have this, maybe it's because of WWE, but they have this notion, Kronik's a heel. He has to be a chicken shit heel. And they're like, so he has to cheat, and he has to try and do he runs away from people, even though that's not what Mason Kronik is. And
no.
I know we've talked about it before, and you would be annoyed by that.
Oh, well, yeah, there are places that have that happen. That's the whole reason. And look, I can't fault Eddie Mack for this, because Kronik was part of the Doctor's Order, and the Doctor's Order are filled with chicken shit heels.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I'm being accompanied by a chicken shit heel in Ben Hopkins or Nitro or AJ Young or something like that, them doing chicken shit game logic stuff that Eddie can't help, it's fine, but it also gets in the way of what I'm trying to portray as the murderer. So that's one of the reasons I didn't want to be in a stable or the doctor's order, because it was just conflicting with how the public was viewing Mason Kronik.
Right.
It wasn't getting the gimmick where it should be. And like I say, that's no fault to Eddie at all. I've talked to him about it, and, it works out.
And it's great because that match, because you beat these guys like easily, and and you use the promos to do a little bit of humor, so like people like that, and it was like, so I think people really figured I was like, oh, Kronik's supposed to be like a destructive, he's supposed to be a monster, and people kind of it started clicking for people that it didn't click before, and
yeah.
So it led to that, and then you had the full-on match with Bobby, which gave people who didn't know who Bobby was a whole new perspective on who he was. So it was great, and it's a match that I still hear people talk about. So that's job well done there. Before we go on, let's look at a few more fan questions.
Again, I have fans.
Nobody likes you. We have from a Savage. How did you manage to evolve as effectively as you've done?
That's an interesting question. We've covered it a little bit.
Yeah.
Luck, I guess. I'd say it's luck. If you see it as something else, tell me. But no. Like I said, I went to start out when oh no, let's not talk about when I came back. Let's talk about before. All right, you can still hear me?
Yeah.
All right, there was just like a thunderclap out there, and I'm just making sure. All right, so let's talk about the beginning. Mason Kronik, 2009, comes into NJCW, wins its heavyweight title, goes into CCL, doesn't know what the fuck he's doing with his gimmick, keeps changing it. I was the Fallen Angel at one point. I was Christopher Daniels. But no, I had a really good song for that too. But I kept switching my gimmicks up from like 2010, 2000 to 2012. Couldn't keep a straight gimmick. I was some money man at one point in time. Mm-hmm. Was the Fallen Angel, was mean old bully Mason Kronik. I didn't really have a gimmick way back in the day. I couldn't think of one I'd get to stick, and I was just having this identity crisis. Flash forward to 2016, I joined was it 2016? It was 16, right?
Yeah.
I joined COH. I say, I'm the human embodiment of rage. I just came back from Japan. I'm going to kick all your asses. Lo and behold, Kronik kicks all their asses. But then I cut a promo where I keep calling somebody a motherfucker. Can't remember who it was. I just called him a motherfucker multiple times. And, people found it funny. And it was getting over. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing that more. And it just took off. That's luck. I didn't know they were going to find it funny. I was just talking how I normally talk, like outside of trying to put on a character. Mm-hmm. So it was luck. But in terms of how I evolved, I'm a writer. I like writing things outside of Caw. I like writing stories and short stories, and like I'm currently working on a book, stuff like that. So I write a lot of stuff when it pertains to Kronik's character. And I get inspiration from wrestlers like Kawada, Vader, Jimmy Havoc, Samoa Joe, Schlack, a whole bunch of people like that. And I just incorporate them into the character.
Right.
That's how the murderer came about.
And I think one thing, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, is kind of like, Chris Jericho is kind of known for it, in that he's known as this guy who, and I guess The Undertaker to a certain extent, although he's been pretty the same for a while now. But
Yeah.
Jericho doesn't like to do the same thing for too long. He likes to, like, okay, this got over, that's great. Oh, just starting to get old. Let me change it, and he's reinvented himself a million times to where he is now. And I kind of see the same thing in Kronik. Like, you could have, because people are like, oh, why'd you change the the motherfucker stuff? Like, you could have kept doing that and it would have been fine, but you changed it before people started getting sick of it and
Yeah.
brought a whole new
Before
persona.
it got old.
Yeah, it was perfect.
So and I felt like at the point it was running its course. I felt like I needed a change. I needed something. I mean, sure, I was a man who had 5 titles at the time, and I mean, I could have let that speak for me. But I felt like personality-wise, Kronik just needed something new, and it worked out. I enjoy the Murderer a lot more than I do the previous gimmicks.
Same.
Like, I feel it's my best gimmick yet.
I think you kind of answered this, but Ray had asked if you'd finished your book.
Finished? No. Writing is kind of difficult. You get writer's block. I have 25 chapters out of a book that's going to have like 50. So I'm halfway there. I haven't worked on it in like 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm getting there. It's a horror novel. It's going to pertain into like its own universe. I have like 3 other stories that don't directly connect to each other, but will end up connecting eventually. But yeah, it's a nice little horror book about think of like a slasher film, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, things like that. Except these kids break down in an RV. They're going on a summer trip. The typical we're dumb teenagers. So they're stuck in this town, and they get invited to this cabin overnight because the father's gonna take care of their RV. They get invited by this family, and the family is like a cult who worship this tree that has like bones growing out of it or like inside of it and stuff because they were buried underneath like a graveyard, or it was grown on top of a graveyard and things like that. So this family basically makes it a game to hunt down and kill all 6 kids that break down in this RV. So yeah, it's a nice little slasher horror thing with like, and each character in the family's gimmicky. One's like a hunter who uses bows and hunting knives and bear traps. One's like a big Jason Voorhees like character that's the super strong, doesn't talk, can crush you with his hand. The mother just runs around with a rifle and will shoot you from a distance. And the sister has dogs, like rabid dogs, that she can tame and control, and they just run after you. And the father, he kind of just like prepares the bodies and stuff for like the tree that they worship. But yeah, I'm not done. No.
Ray also asked, what are your thoughts on your feud with Chris McIntyre in GSF so far?
GSF is so currently. Remember when I said I have a top 5?
Mm-hmm.
It would be in there. GSF is one of my favorite shows right now. I wish Ray was faster than he was. I mean, I can't fault him because he has a life, but I wish there was more content out there because I absolutely love GSF. And I think Ray is doing really good by the Kronik character right now. So yeah, I feel like on the latest episode of GSF, Kronik came out there and basically made himself known and was like, "I'm coming after this belt that you have." Beat the hell out of Chris McIntyre, and yeah, I really enjoy the feud.
And this coming from some Bebit guy. Thoughts on where mass appeal can go?
That's a tough one. For those of you who don't know, mass appeal is the union between Mason Kronik and Ben Hopkins, the unit. It's what they're called when they come together. Now, it's really weird when they come together, because me and Ben have never been like a solidified official team, like 110%. We come together briefly from time to time and go by mass appeal. I feel like if Ben and me ever did anything like the like not necessarily like the best friend thing, but I feel like we could be like aligned with each other, like kind of like rated RKO,
right?
How they were, but still be single stars at the same time.
Yeah, because we've seen, of course, you guys both were in the Doctor's Order and were at one point the CCL Tag Team Champions.
Yeah.
You guys.
But even then, I've always considered myself more of a single star than a tag team competitor.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then like even like you, because you guys have been aligned in CCWO, but you guys were after your singles pursuits. You guys just happened to be aligned. And then also with ECW, I mean, this is kind of where it all starts with you guys. I mean, I guess this is a good segue to go into, because this can go into ECW and CCWO and all that. This whole Ben Hopkins feud, partnership, and all that, how did that come to be, and how has it gotten to where it is now?
I just want to say, I wish people would quit booking me in feuds with Ben Hopkins. We were supposed to be a team. We were supposed to be a team, but Ryan Paul Jones, you dirty son of a bitch. You went, and you're like, you know what? Hold on. I need to go fix my window. But no, Ryan Paul Jones. He said, "No, what? I'm gonna put you two in a feud, a rivalry. You two hate each other now. Good job." And I'm like, well, there goes mass appeal. We debuted at, was it Call Stars 9?
Yeah, you guys debuted because you defended the CCWO heavyweight title against Brent Thompson. He had CJ Hawkins in his corner, and they kind of cheated to win. And then Sean O'Connor was like, "Oh no, we're not gonna have it like this. You know, Kronik's gonna have Ben in his corner." And you guys did a tag team match, and you won back the title.
Yeah. So we debuted at Call Stars 9, like literally like 2 or 3 weeks after Call Stars 9. Ben debuts in ECW. I show up after his debut and, fuck him up. I'm like, well, shit. There we go. There's the feud. I guess mass appeal's over now. I feel like mass appeal could be salvaged, though, because Ben and Kronik have worked together so often. They've also fought often. They don't necessarily have to agree with each other as much as they have to respect each other. So I feel mass appeal could still be salvaged eventually. I just wish people would quit putting me in feuds with Ben.
Right. Now let's talk about you feuding with Ben. So...
What did I just say?
Well, because you and Ben are still feuding in ECW on NXT. What have you thought so far? Because you guys have been feuding for a bit, and there's been a bit of a time between episodes, so maybe it hasn't been as quick as maybe you would have hoped from the beginning. But what have you thought so far?
If it was up to me, I would have been like, okay, this needs to be done by now. But look, RPJ has a life of his own, and RPJ takes his time on his shows. So I don't necessarily mind him taking so long. I just personally, if it were up to me, it'd be over by now. Just because this feud is literally, it started, if we're going on real time, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to just like, I don't know where we are Caw time wise, because Caw time is weird.
It is.
So, you know, I could be simultaneously feuding and teaming with Ben at the same time. We could be in a blood feud and be tag team champions at the same time. You know, I just never know. I think that's what happened in CCWO. I think we were CCL tag champions and having a last man standing match in CCWO.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you and Ben did get to feud and work together in CCWO because episodes have come out quicker there. What did you think of that feud and alliance there?
Oh, in particular with Ben, see, there it reminded me really of the best friends, not the AEW's best friends, but Jericho and
KO.
Owens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of there. And you know, I liked it, and I always I'm a big fan of Ben, so Ben went over in that feud, and in CCWO, Kronik's looked at as one of the guys, the man, one of them, not Becky Lynch, or Ric Flair. Don't sue me. But look, all I'm saying, oh yeah, or Jericho, as JR put it. I felt like it went perfectly fine because, you know, Ben went over in the end, and I'm a big fan of Ben. I don't mind putting Ben over.
Right. And then to cover our bases here, in for CCWO, because you've been in CCWO for a long while now, or to some of the earlier episodes. For a lot of that time, you were heavyweight champion, and you mentioned one of the key guys there. What did you think of that run in CCW as champion, and where are you at now with CCWO?
Where I'm at now with CCWO is, you know how I'm talking about changing and revitalizing myself and all of this.
Right.
I want to bring in more of the murderer essence, the essence of the murderer into CCWO.
Mm-hmm.
Sean O'Connor has always been good at making me look dominant, etc., etc. But I feel like there needs to be a more violent Mason Kronik there at the moment. And that's what I would like. As for the run, I felt like it was a really good run. Not so keen on the man who beat me, but
he's a bitch.
Big dumb bitch. But I felt like it was a good run.
Now let's dance on back to COH. You obviously, we already covered, you won the title and everything. We talked about how you've defended the title multiple times and all that, and you
Oh yeah. Sahid, Scott, Rockstone, you name all three of them.
Man, I mean, I'm used to it, but like, I know you were like, man, I'm always working these same guys.
Well, yeah, and I would say that to Travis, and Travis is like, well, guess who you're fighting next? Like, okay, Travis, you listen here, you dumb bitch.
So, now that the title reign is over, how do you look at your title run?
Could have been better. I really enjoyed COH. I felt like the reign could have been better, mainly because I was feuding with the same people over and over and over again. And like I said, winning the belt under uh, weird circumstances didn't help.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Losing the belt under weird circumstances didn't help. Um, I lost. I basically gave up the belt because I was going to be homeless.
Right.
I was homeless, and I wouldn't be able to work much for COH. So Travis was like, "I can't have a champion that's not there," and I'm like, "Yeah, I agree." So I'm like, let's have me drop the belt." But it's really weird how that run all was. If I could redo it, I would. If I could redo it as the murderer, I would.
Right. And so, and you lost the title to AJ, who's now the champion, and I I assume that's that's all good in your book for.
Oh yeah, AJ's fine. I originally would have wanted to lose it to Brandon Young. That was not Brandon Young. Brandon Wolf. Why am I thinking? I'm looking at the name Young right now. Excuse me. I was reading something about a young lion by the name of Kawato from New Japan. Brandon Young Lion Wolf. I bet you were like, who the hell is Brandon Young?
I was wondering that. I was like,
This fan, and he's like 10. Let's bring him in. Make a wish, kid. No, but Brandon Wolf. My bad. That's who I originally wanted to lose it to. Like I had talked about that like months ago with Travis. I'm like, okay, but that was before the revelation of me being homeless, and that's before Brandon was like, okay, I have 1 year left in me.
right. So you mentioned Brandon, and this is a good point to bring this up. I mean, we've talked about the murderer and how that all came to be. So we've talked about all that, and we talk about how it goes back to conspiracy. You had that at Call Stars, you beat 3 guys, so it would make perfect sense that you kind of showed people you should get a Call Stars title match. And so I was like, okay, we got conspiracy here. I need to have a Call Stars title match. Wolf versus Kronik is perfect. Let's do it here. And I mean, I know when we talked about it, like you knew beforehand, like Wolf was going to retain the title and all that, and the whole change to the new character, was this like, were you thinking about this before, as this match was starting to get set up, or was this like you see the match and you're like, I got to change right now?
No, I was thinking about it beforehand. I knew changes need to be made, and I like to long-term book stuff. In terms of Kronik, not necessarily booking, but like gimmick-wise, I like to keep things consistent. I like to give things reason and purpose. I saw that around the time of the match that I was losing a lot everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's all unplanned. Like I didn't tell everyone, "Hey, make me lose." But because of that, that's when I started planning. I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm losing this match. I might as well have something to fall back on and revitalize myself. So that was that. I figured that's the biggest match out of all of them. That's something Kronik has wanted for a very long time, is the Call Stars title, and he couldn't win it. So he needed to change.
And and change you did. I mean, it really, and in that match the you had for the Wolf and Kronik match, I mean, it went over really well with a lot of people. I remember because that match, it got put on the like 7th day of Conspiracy, which was like the Champions Day, and it didn't close. And I know there was some on multiple sides of the community that were not that felt that match should have closed because it had the story and because it had all this. So long story short, people seemed to dig the match and the story with you guys.
Yeah.
Especially we kind of worked on the doctor's order having these issues. That was kind of like the first step in being like, hey, not everyone in the doctor's order may not be on the same page, and Doc being there at ringside and you kind of intimidating Doc at ringside.
Like I said, when you think about when you think about it, you have all these guys who are main eventers, all these alphas that are gonna butt heads.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that's when Kronik was like, pretty much started. That basically was the start of the Murderer. That's when Kronik started having problems with the Doctor's order.
Yeah.
Specifically, Doc himself in general. And now I'd say Kronik's pretty much done with the order. So.
It appears so. I know at the time we weren't sure if it was, but now it definitely appears so, or at least heading in that direction. And it led to that promo. And I know for me at least, for some people it was like, oh man, there's this big change, and we'll get to some of those places. But it was welcome for me because you had just lost the Extreme title. And I was already planning on, okay, Kronik is now, he's done with the Extreme division. He's going off for the heavyweight title. And it was like, this is great. This is a perfect time to do it. And the next Uprising, you had the new look and the new gimmick. And it worked out perfect timing for me.
Yeah.
And of course, we led to Survivor Series and everything, where you basically, for the most part, won the match all on your own. And then it's led to where we are now with... Now Mason Kronik is suspended in the AWF. So maybe you'll never be seen in AWF again. Who knows?
I already packed my bags. I'm living in Japan.
Going back to Japan.
That's where I am now.
But for other people, the change was very unexpected, and we've seen in certain shows where your look hasn't completely changed. Like I know in ECF, because ECF, they were one of their shows that they put out back in like June. It took many months for that show to be released, and Andrew had recorded a match with the old character model with hair. And he walked out, and I tease him about this all the time because he deserves it. But you walked out with the old Kronik look, and he'd be like, "Oh, it's the new Mason Kronik."
Yeah,
with the old look.
Yeah, no. any show that still uses the old Kronik, that's still the motherfucker.
Yeah, and
the Murderer is defined really heavily by his look.
Yes. And then in COH, and now COH has been just recently switched to 2K19. Was on 2K18 for a long time, and so you had your 18 model, and you'd come out to it. Now, I've been of the belief that you could simply have changed your hairstyle on the 18 call, but that didn't happen. You just came out. To me, it looked like it was like, oh man, COH taped these episodes like last year, and they're just now coming out. And so you'd be champion, and you'd suddenly have hair, but you go to CCL or AWF or CCWO or ECW, you'd look and you'd be like, huh, he has no hair. So that was weird. And so some people just had this difficulty, some maybe because of, timeline or recording issues. And I thought it would happen initially, but for some it happened for a while. Like even as of your last COH appearance, you still had hair.
I walked out to "Nobody Likes Me."
Yeah.
And that's not the Murderer's theme song.
No. So it's just so weird. A lot of some places handled the transition very smoothly. Like I think, AWF did. I think CCL did very smoothly.
CCL and AWF are the ones I think are handling it the best.
Yeah.
Like have their hands on it and know what they're doing with it. And I send long notes to people as to how I want this gimmick to be, and like, this is the character, blah blah blah. I feel like if I said that to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I mean I could be wrong, and if I am, I apologize. I feel like only 3 people who have read it are you, Ray, and Eddie. Now I would say RPJ, but RPJ hasn't really been releasing a lot of Kronik related content recently.
Right.
So I mean, I'm sure RPJ did read it because he's,
he did, because I remember when you sent it out, we had talked and he was like, "Oh, did you get this thing from Kronik?" And we talked about it, and both of us been on record to say big supporters of the murderer gimmick.
Yeah, it's my favorite gimmick. So, but I don't know why people are having such a hard time.
They can't let go of the motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. People like the song, but
do you think if you had different entrance music, people would make the change a lot sooner, or do you think that just has nothing to do with it?
Like if I had like a song with actual lyrics,
like if you just had like no, like if you never used "Nobody Likes Me," if you just had like generic rock song, and you debut this, like, do you think the reason some people might be hesitant is because of the song, or you think that has nothing to do with it?
I feel like my theme song was a big part of why I got over.
Sure.
I don't feel like I would have been as over or had as much exposure or like had as much as acknowledgement without that song. I feel like, let me find, who is somebody that I don't mind offending? Someone who exists and is there, but also isn't there and acknowledged as frequently.
That is there but isn't there.
Yeah, like someone who exists and is in shows, but like
doesn't actually do anything. Like CJ Hawkins.
Yeah, I feel like maybe that's how I'd be.
Okay.
I feel like I wouldn't be as acknowledged. I feel like a theme song really helps your character. And, promos really help too. But whenever I first started, I wasn't doing the best voice promos. Because I wasn't putting a lot of time into it, because I wasn't sure how to go about voice promos. But now, like I feel like I could have gotten to this point, but it would have took much longer than it has.
Right.
If I hadn't had the theme song and I hadn't had all the key components and elements in place.
Okay. Let's go back to a couple fan questions. GMR, favorite feud so far?
You see, this one was a tough one. I can't even remember everyone I feuded with. Let's see. There's Rockstone number 1, Rockstone number 2, Rockstone number 3. There's Sean O'Connor.
Mm-hmm.
That's one I'd like to do again. I don't know necessarily feuds. I haven't really had many feuds in CCL. I've had like challengers and like tournaments and things like that. There's Manson and AWF that I've had a feud with.
Yes, I mean Manson and Brian
I'd say Ben.
Okay.
Ben and then like Rockstone. I also enjoyed the Scott feud.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I don't remember too many.
Uh,
I mean, I've had feuds, but like a lot of them are like repeats or you know.
right. GMR also asked, and this ties in perfectly. He's like, who do you want to murder next? Now, FBI. He means as who you'd like to face in the future.
Um, there's a few people, uh, two of which I would like to feud with, rather than have a match with. I've already had singles matches with them, but I would like to feud with them. Ray Geddes and Malik Brown.
Okay.
Top two people I'd like to feud with. I've had singles matches with them in CCL. Both have been really good matches, and I feel like I could work very well with both of them. I have a good personal relationship with both of them. But as for other places, I would say Sean O'Connor. I've like had matches with him before, but it's been a really long time since there's been a Kronik Sean O'Connor match.
Mm-hmm.
They've had literally, and I know whenever you say this, it's CAW, but like they've had matches in CAW locations that take place all over the world. DIW was the UK, CCWO Canada had a match in COH, the US. They fought in New Japan CAW Wrestling. So I feel like they could have they're like the Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit thing where they just fight all over the world. I'd like to have an actual feud with him, but in terms of matches, COH would be Goonie. I think I would work well with Goonie. I'd like to see Walter Scott versus Kronik. Jamal Bedlam in Kronik. Who else is there? I had someone else in my head. Oh yeah, Ryan Carroll.
Oh, that fat bitch.
Speaking of fat bitches, John Blackos. John Blackos is another one. Do you know I have to go on about him stealing my gimmick?
Well, that brings us to this next question.
Oh, okay, here we go.
John sends this question. Does he still hold a grudge against me for stealing the dumb bitch and turn it into fat bitch?
Look here, John. I'm the reason you got over. I'm the reason you're over, John Blackos.
Kronik was swearing before it was cool.
I am John Blackos. I am the #1 Frenchman in the world. Red Eye, Ray Geddes, get the F in. Yeah. But fucking, no, that's about it. John, Ryan Carroll. Now, but when I say Carroll, I mean, I think like heel versus heel things can be cool occasionally. And the way COH books Carroll would be like okay, these two are staring down what's going to happen type thing. Because Carroll's a big character too. So
yeah.
I think that'd be cool. Oh yeah, J-Crack. They've had matches before, but a feud with Kronik and J-Crack would be the funniest thing I've seen. Like, Jay is hilarious, and Kronik getting basically just harassed by Jay would be hilarious. But yeah, basically, I have quite a few, but I have a lot more people that I've actually had matches with that I'd rather feud with than actually people that I've never faced before.
Right. So one thing we've mentioned it here and there, and we've put it off to later. So now is probably a good time to mention it. You know, this year we talk about the transition to the murderer and all that, but there was an unfortunate bump in the road, and from your personal life, and a lot of people, and I helped deliver the message to some people, and it was you had to. in some cases you had to either like exit from shows or take sabbaticals from shows or what it be, or at least drop whatever belts you had. So what happened in your life, and then what happened with the character and the storylines?
Okay, so about 2 months ago, and I'm gonna tell them the whole story. Have you guys ever seen a show called Shameless?
I love Shameless.
Okay, so you know how outrageous everything there is, right?
Yeah.
My life is like an episode of Shameless. So my roommate, who I have a very colorful history with, if you're really close to me, you know. She decided to be the world's biggest dumbass. And she decided she was gonna, sell meth. Out of my apartment, under my nose, without me knowing, as the middleman she didn't cook the meth, but she was selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I lived in this apartment with somebody selling meth, I didn't know about it till she was kicked out. But because of that, I lost my apartment, and I was subsequently homeless. I was working for Netflix at the time, and when you're homeless, you can't really work from your computer. So, I was out on the street for a while, and that affected how I was in shows. I lost the national title in CCL because I couldn't be around. I lost the COH world title. If you want to know the actual story going into why all this stuff happened so abruptly and all at the same time, I was taken out of some shows, but, I also came back a lot sooner than originally planned. Because a couple weeks ago, I made a Facebook post saying I'm going to Alabama for a couple days with my family. They paid my way, and when I was there, a lot of my family came together and actually took up donations and raised quite a bit of money for me to actually get my own place. So it's because my family came together that I was able to come back as soon as I did. But no, I'll tell you, being homeless is harder than you might think it is. I know it doesn't sound easy, but I had to steal Wi-Fi from a local McDonald's nearby the homeless shelter. I had to make friends with employees so they'd give me free food. I saw an ICE raid. There was like a legitimate ICE raid at the homeless shelter. You'd see people do drugs. You'd see fights. You'd just see some really sick stuff that you wish you didn't see. You'd literally see people steal from other people. You'd see people come in after they literally just robbed someone. There's this old guy who robbed some dude and spent all the money that he took from a dude and spent it on alcohol. So yeah, I was living in a homeless shelter for a little while. And it's pretty rough. It really is.
Yeah, I remember at the time, because obviously, like now you've revealed all this to people, and people who have you out on Facebook, you've revealed some pieces of it to people. I remember because I was told about it, and I was like, well, shit. Obviously, your life and your health was first, and I was like,
oh yeah, I hadn't even mentioned my health. But I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Because there are some people who know about it, but there also aren't people who know about it.
Not everyone needs to know that.
Yeah. I have a family member who knows about Caw and sometimes will Google Mason Kronik, or not Google Mason Kronik, but look him up on YouTube. And I don't know how much they know about my health.
Right.
There are some people in my family that don't know everything about my health. So, we're going to keep it that way.
Right. Yeah, and all that. And I remember because I was like, oh, man, okay, we'll do what we got to do. And then, I adjusted my AWF plans, which I mean, and because we've talked about it, it didn't adjust it really all that much, but I think it's actually worked out for the better in
Oh
storyline
yeah, yeah,
wise.
definitely.
With some really cool stuff. So look forward to that, people. And the thing it sucks about everyone else's, because everyone else's stuff, it wasn't maybe as smooth, and it happens. But now you're and
It led to a very, very, very good match on CCL Undisputed. Mason Kronik versus Ray Geddes. Check it out.
right. And this brings me to Call All Stars 11, and I put out a Google forum so people could give their predictions for who's going to win the Call All Stars 11 matches, and it was pretty certain that most people believed that you were going to beat Fisk, and it wasn't pretty close. And
I mean, hell, even I thought I was going to beat Fisk.
And because we had talked, we were like, okay, we're gonna do this match, and it was like I wasn't sure at the time. I was like, okay, who's gonna win and whatnot, and I remember I was thinking, I was like, okay, who could win here, and I had some people who, after the match, who had talked to me, whether it be on Discord or on Facebook, and they were like, oh, he's like, oh, that was all great, and I was like, but they didn't understand why you lost. So to kind of, I mean, obviously the biggest thing is all the stuff that Kronik just mentioned. It's for one, no one knew when things would be back to normal per se, and I was like, well, if Kronik's gone for 6 months to a year, it wouldn't make sense for Kronik to win. And even from a story perspective, before things really started to get where they were, I looked at it as like, okay, the year before you had that whole series of matches, and Fisk lost, and I was like, okay, Fisk could use something here to get the win. Nah, and that was my rationale with that. I wanted to address that because I had some people who were asking about it. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. The only issue I had with the match, and they know about it. They know we have issues with it. Just how it was recorded.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it could have been done better.
Right. Yeah, there
were some things in the match, and I wish I could have recorded it, because you heard my plan for it.
Yeah, you had some great ideas for it.
Yeah, I still want to record a match with Kronik like that eventually, but it will be done at a later date with someone else.
Yeah, because that was the plan at one point, to try and make that happen, but there was no way they could go that way, and so it got recorded, and there was some
miscommunication.
I had sent the person who recorded it some guidelines, and I stole some of the ideas that you had, and I put them in there. So some of the stuff, there was some cool stuff from the match, just maybe they weren't illustrated as they were written. Yeah.
Done how they could have been.
Right. The good thing, though, is, that there's always room for a rematch in the future. So.
Yeah, there is. Call Stars does specials sometimes, so yeah. I mean, could always book one there, or I'm recording it. Mason Kronik is recording it. And we'll see what happens.
Right, yeah. Let's see. And because we're winding down, we're getting closer to the end here, so we have the last couple questions. What kind of deals can I get on Crunchyroll? That comes from MTB.
Oh, fuck! I knew of this question earlier. Hold on a second. I have an answer prepared for you. I'm gonna try not to die. In the meantime, okay. Crunchyroll Premium Membership Choose Plan. All right. So, you like anime. You like lesbian stepsisters and all of that. Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, we got that. You already know, the shtick. Anyways. Fuck. Okay, that's not the commercial. I'm dying. For 1 month, all you have to pay is $7.99 to go premium. No ads, uninterrupted watching. You get the latest episodes a week in advance. You're good. You're a weeb. Go for 1 month for $7.99. Give it a try. However, if you like that and you want to try it a little more, for $22.99 or $7.66 a month, you'll get 3 months. Go premium. But if you're a true weeb and you want this to last for 12 months at only $666, damn, that's the devil's number, dollars a month, go premium, you're saving 16% off your purchase if you get a 12-month membership for $6.66 a month.
Damn. I mean, it's funny with that question how we didn't acknowledge one of the things that probably helped get you, I guess, over per se and more popular was that ECF commercial.
And I just want to clarify here, 90% of that commercial was me. I think Andrew just wanted me to say a couple things about Crunchyroll, but I went and I edited things and brought in screenshots, and I went. I'm like, wait, I'm a weeb, so I like anime.
Isn't the video of like the Mason Kronik character in the video game, isn't that from like one of your promos that you? It's from like CCL.
Yep. I couldn't record my own, so I don't even think Eddie knows that.
Think about this for a second. That was from a promo in CCL that got recycled into the ECF commercial. That again got recycled into the AWF commercial.
It's just a promo that's recycled over and over. I love how you recycled that clip, but you just like, I'm gonna record all these other ones for everyone else.
Yeah. And that one too, because you do the whole thing, and then I'm like, I think I've seen this one before. Commercials, man, they can do the trick.
Oh, that's another thing. Car commercials have changed 100%, like in the past like year or so.
Yeah. Like
people are going above and beyond what they do with their commercials to make them stand out. Like back in the day, it used to just be a song and a bunch of random clips.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's skits and they're things that will actually catch people's attention. So.
Yeah, at least for me, for other people it may be different. Like to me, commercials got to be something. Yeah, you can have like a nice song, and sometimes it works. Like there's sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a good song. What is this from? But to me, people know the ECF commercial. They're like, oh, that ECF Kronik commercial. They know the AWF commercial because I see it. I see when it comes on during people's shows. People, they react to it. That's the stuff that people remember. So to me, like when I do release a new AWF commercial, it's going to be in the same vein that it'll be some kind of skit or something funny, because people remember that. When people laugh, they remember.
That's true. And I still have people to this day, despite the character being old in it, every time that ECF commercial plays, and look, no offense to Andrew, but every time it plays, people call it the Kronik commercial. Like, that's what I've noticed. For some reason, whenever I talk to a group of people, they're like, "Oh yeah, your commercial," and I've been asked that before, and I'm like, "What commercial?"
Oh my!
And then, yeah, so it's the Kronik commercial now.
This one comes from Scott McShannon, a bit personal. How big is your dick?
Let me
What are you gonna measure it?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and measure it live? Uh, oh shit, I don't have one.
Oh. Well, maybe you can answer this one from an AJ Hawks. How big is Batista's dick?
Oh no, did I just get you shooted? Oh no. I mean, look, I designed Kronik a little bit after Batista, so I'm gonna keep that information well hidden.
Okay.
I know it.
You know it, but you can't reveal it.
I can't reveal it. No.
Okay. And this one's different. From Eddie Mack, how would you bring Spider-Man back into the MCU? If at all, I should say.
How would I bring him back into the MCU? That's a hard one because that goes into a lot of legal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like now I probably won't answer why, although I will give my opinion on that situation because I don't have an answer why. Like it's just two massive companies butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know people are picking sides, Sony or Disney, but like I said for Kronik, I like consistency. And I feel Spider-Man getting the boot out of the MCU is just inconsistent as fuck.
Yes. So,
it's not going to make any sense, especially with how Endgame ended off. Spider-Man
Far From
Spider-Man
Home.
was yeah. I haven't seen it, so
Okay.
Yeah, I was homeless.
That's true. I won't tell you anything, but they have some work to do.
I feel like Spider-Man was getting set up to be like a key player, and it didn't work how it should have. So him getting taken out is just gonna be a big hole in the MCU that needs to be fixed.
Hopefully it does. I mean, honestly, I hope they just somehow in the ninth hour reach a new deal.
And Stan Lee wouldn't have wanted this. If Stan Lee was still alive, I guarantee you 100% Stan Lee would intervene in this situation. If Stan Lee was not dead, he would intervene. I'm like 110% sure of that.
Yeah. I hope it somehow works out. Whatever the deal is, I mean, that's up to the companies to figure out the money and licensing and all that kinds of stuff. But
yeah,
they I think they have to. I think
I just hope they work out a deal because fan backlash, it does a lot.
Yeah. And and everyone has their opinions and everything, but it seems like overwhelmingly people have been happy with the MCU Spider-Man films and Tom Holland and this portrayal of the character. So they have something good here. They should keep going with it as it is.
I know. I mean, poor Tom Holland. Dude's great.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed this role. I mean, I know Sony says they're going to keep making movies, but I don't want a Sony Spider-Man movie.
We've seen that.
I'd rather a MCU continuation of a character that we're familiar with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my whole take on that. I don't know how I'd bring him in again. Like,
you'd probably have to see Far From Home before you could even speculate even more. But yeah, interesting question. Kudos to Eddie to switching it up. Now, this is a question, I think there's a good one to probably end it on. We got it come from Mikey Truth. He asks, what goals do you have to define your legacy in CAW? And maybe a better way to put that is, now you're the murderer, you're back, and all that. What do you look forward at, and you're like, what do you want to accomplish?
what do I want to accomplish before I decide to quit CAW and just go, or what do I want to accomplish now? Or both overall?
Both.
Okay. So, now look, I'm not politicking to you or anything, but I think everyone would have this answer. Eventually, you want to be the Call Stars champion.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if there was ever a way to work a storyline with that, I'd love to try and do that before I go. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I don't care. But like I said, the whole main reason for Kronik becoming the murderer was the Call Stars champion not being his. The Call Stars championship not being his. So there's that, of course. There's a feud with Malik Brown that I would like. A very particular, specific feud that I would like to talk to him about. That I feel like me and him could work out. I want to do, and these are just things I want to do before I go. I would like to maybe one day have a stable of my own. Or be in a tag team similar to, what was it, Austin and Triple H?
Oh, okay, the Power Trip.
Yeah, Power Trip. I was going to say the Mega Powers, but I knew that wasn't right. I would like a Mega, or not a Mega Powers, a Power Trip kind of team with Kronik, like in another like big guy, like big star.
Right.
Could always do that with Ben, but it mass appeals like it's like a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
The CCL title, something I'd like. I already crossed one thing off my CCL bucket list, and that was March Madness recently.
Mm-hmm.
March Madness was something I had on there for a while. And what would I want to do personally, not as Kronik, but as myself, and what I have been doing, is I've been working on Hero a lot recently. I've been recording a lot of stuff from Hero. And I would like to do that for a couple of years once I start pumping shows out. Only thing is, it's really hard on Fire Pro. But what I want is I mainly want my character to be portrayed in a way that I see fit. And so far, a lot of people are doing that well. Some people are struggling, and I do tell them when they struggle. But I want the murderer character to be similar to Japan Vader, in a way. Japanese Vader. You know, I just want my character to be memorable. And I think I'm doing a good job at that. I'm getting recognition from people who I never thought I'd get recognition from before. DJ Wentworth.
Mm-hmm. He's a big fan.
Yeah, he's acknowledged me recently, which I find really surprising. And, just everyone whose show I'm involved in, like, people, like Eddie Mack, even at a time, I thought, like, he just looked at me as just someone signed on his roster because before I came back, I was just there. And now Eddie does really good by me. D-Wall has taken interest in me. People in the VWU who I thought just didn't care because, I associated, like, heavily back when, like, the brand wars was going on.
Right.
I thought like they didn't like me at all, but I'm well accepted over there by a lot of people over there. So I feel like I'm doing a good job at defining what Kronik is, and I feel like, say I retired next year, like Kronik would be able to be called like somewhat of a legend, just basically off what I've done the past couple years. I don't know if that's thinking too highly of myself, but I would say it's ground for, if I retired, like, it would be meaningful in a way. Like, oh, Kronik's retiring. Good on him. Hate to see it, but like, I feel like if I left, I'd have a little bit of a legacy to leave behind.
Right. I'd like, and I think this is my perspective, but I'd like to think that you have, you've left a good legacy for whenever you do decide. So, and hopefully that's still a bit away, because I'm excited for what's to come. We can't say that because it hasn't happened yet, but I'm
Look,
excited
this
for
is
what's to come.
this is one of my favorite hobbies to do. I really like the creativity aspect of it. So as long as life doesn't get in the way, I'm going to keep doing it. Eventually, I'm sure life will get in the way, and I'll have to call it quits. But until then, I mean, I'll keep doing it, or until like Kronik becomes like 90 years old, and I'm like 62 doing COD.
Doing it at 62 and still not in the Call Stars Hall of Fame.
Fucking Minoru Suzuki status. Old man Kronik. Oh, I jobbed Suzuki out last year during Call Stars weekend. So. But yeah, basically, as long as I have a memory and a legacy to leave behind, then I'm happy. And I feel like I've left my mark. I feel like I could leave tomorrow and be like, well, damn, we miss Mason Kronik.
Mm-hmm. I think so. But, hopefully that day is a long bit away. And, I look forward to maybe doing this again with this interview down the road, and we'll see where Mason Kronik has gone since then. We've talked a little bit about Hero, because by then we'll have more episodes and more content out, and we can talk all about that. So I wish you the best of luck with everything that's coming up with Hero, so if you guys aren't subscribed or following on Twitter, do that, because it's going to be
I will
unique.
make sure Sean will put that link in the description below.
Now I have to.
Exactly.
And so go subscribe, go watch all that, and go support all the shows that you're a part of, and let's see what's next for the murderer. Thank you, Kronik.